Hello, and today we'll continue with Kingsguard with Ramos route. Ah, freedom. You stumbled on ahead, out through the shrubbery and into an open meadow. All around you were rolling hills filled with vibrant flowers and golden grass that swayed gently in the wind. It might have been the heat of the forest, but that last leg of the trek had you feeling a bit under the weather. The cool breeze that swept past you was a welcoming and comforting feeling that helped cool you down, while the pleasing floral scent that wafted through the crisp, clean did wonders on your woozy mind. You fell into another trance, taking it all in. You probably could have fallen asleep standing if you didn't hear Rainbows calling out for you. Don't start lagging behind. While you were gawking, Ramos was still striding on ahead. You moved your feet to keep up. Sorry, just never seen something so beautiful before. Don't get too excited. It's just flowers. We just spent the day traveling through the forest, you know. Plenty of these to see there. I know, but I can't exactly say I'm fond of the woods. Too stuffy and mosquitoes. Rainbow slapped at his neck and checked his palm before wiping it off on his clothes. Suppose that's true, though. I'm still being eaten alive. It's just nice to see a change of scenery. It looks like all this just stretches on forever. Yeah. What? You're such a kid. You can't blame me for wanting to take it all in. I've been locked up in Havana nearly all my life. Wasn't even able to venture out into the green fields or even travel beyond the sea gate up until a few days ago. Aside from the town and the ocean, I haven't seen anything like this except in books, and I have to say this is much better than the pictures. Shit, when you say it like that, you almost make me feel bad for you. The river that you followed began to shrink more and more until it was but a small stream, and the path they had begun taking felt less untraveled. The ground was patted down tight, and a dirt trail revealed itself soon before you. Seems we're on the right track, and the scent of burning wood is getting stronger too. Might be a village nearby after all. You lifted your nose, but still didn't catch a hint of what Ramos was smelling. Though perhaps it was for the best. You couldn't imagine what a beastman would have to endure constantly having their senses bombarded like so. And Venda was the most wonderful of smelling places, especially in the lower districts where the poor resided. It always took a bit of a while to get used to the stench, but how beastmen managed to walk through without their eyes rolling to the back of their head you never knew. As you brought your head back down, your eyes caught sight of what looked to be two common folk chattering quite loudly amongst themselves on the other side of the river. Huh? Who's that? No idea, but with the way they're dressed, it's like, I'll take it they're peasants. And look over there. Rainbows pointed further down the river. In the distance were plumes of grayish smoke rising up from the chimneys of so many buildings sheltered inside a tall wooden gate. We made it. Let's go talk to them. Perhaps they might know if someone from the ship had come into town. Hey, hold on. Whatever Rainbows had said flew in one ear and out the other. He had already sprinted half the distance between the commoners down the hill before you heard him give up on shouting. Loundos, Castillo, Marilyn, and Esther, ever since you woke up on the beach, it had been on your mind. Did they make it to safety? Did they make it safely on shore? Were they unhurt? And when would you get to see them again? You were already getting ahead of yourself, but you just knew they had to be here at this village. They just had to. As you started to approach, the two countrywomen were quite engrossed in a fierce conversation that they didn't even notice you. They both wore similar ragged gowns of muted browns, grays, blues, and yellows that flapped widely whenever the wind blew by. The deep wrinkles on their face and hunchbacks so they were quite past their prime yet. They still moved quite swiftly with the energy of a child. Beside them was a basket overfilled with dirty clothes and a washing board poised near the river. The scent of lavender wafted in the air, probably the soap they were using, was also quite strong. Despite only being a few feet from one another, the two women were quite broken in their chatter. When one finished saying something, the other immediately picked up, either retorting quite savagely or wholeheartedly agreeing. You tried to get in a word in hopes that they would notice you, but it was as though you were invisible to them. They were lost in their own world, and as in a rush as you were to discover the location of your loved ones, you didn't want to be rude by barging in. So you waited for a moment to chime in, though it didn't seem like it would ever come. And I say to the little wench, you keep your eyes on your work or I'll call the witch down on you. You know her. Whole family got their eyes swinging out their sockets. They got them grubby little and like squirrels, all touching everything too. Just the one that ain't got chased out yet. Excuse me if I could have a moment of. Just when you thought you had a window of opportunity, the women started back up again. Then again, your husband been on a drink spree or late, could wrap an iron round him and he'd be ready for serve. There ain't no excuse for her. While look at the mirrors, even see is a daisy picking about her husband is off at God knows where. Just tough times indeed. Crops failing, clouds in the distance so graying down. If the weather don't warm up, I have to go chopping for wood again. I asked that one young lad out for me just the other day. Good thing he agreed to. Last time I went out, earned me back something fierce. Oh, he's a reliable one, that one. What if I was just a few years younger? I don't think I've ever been ignored this long since I was a child. We didn't want to interrupt them, but it didn't seem like you were going to get anywhere being nice. Did I tell you about yesterday with the... Hey, quit your yapping. We have a question for you, too. Just as you were about to take a step forward and intrude upon the lady's conversation, Ramos's boisterous voice called out from behind you. It startled you so much that you nearly slipped and fell into the river, and the two women ceased their chatter. Ramos put a hand on your shoulder as he stepped beside you. The women turned slowly to face the two of you, finally recognizing your existence. You were worried that the southern and booming voice of the rhino was giving them a heart attack, or at the very least would have sent them running, screaming towards the village, crying about a monster. They were, after all, facing down a rhino that was 3 times their size, and it didn't help that he approached them with a scowl. But their faces showed not even the slightest hint of surprise or fear. Rather, they both rose an eyebrow with mild annoyance as to who yelled at them and disturbed their conversation. Their eyes moved from head to toe in contempt as they assessed the beastmen in front of them. With scrutiny, when they were done, they quickly looked at each other as other they were unimpressed. Then they turned their attention down to you, and it was your turn to feel like a mouse staring up at 2 hawks. With both eyebrows raised and quizzical looks, they crossed their wrinkled faces. You could tell they were far more interested in you. After they finished assessing the two of you, they turned to whisper amongst themselves like children, taking glances back every so often. You could just barely make out what they were saying. Oh my stars, can't believe the nerve of these two, so like they own the old place. Why if I was just 10 years younger, I'd show him what for. Well, they can't be all that bad, can they? I mean, he looks like just a boy, and might I say one at that. And might I say a fine one at that. True, though these old eyes haven't gone bad yet, I can see a looker from a mile away. Oh, but that brute. Do you think he's a bandit? Certainly look like one ain't. But I do have to say, for one of them beastmen, he ain't half bad to look at either. There you go again. Always wondering after those burly types. Nothing wrong with a little meat on the bones. Keeps you warm at night, unlike your stick of a husband. Ramos grunted, tapped his foot, and his face tensed up even more than you thought was possible. Tapped his feet. He was nearly at the end of his rope. Before he made another outburst and left any more of a bad first impression, he spoke up. Excuse me, I'm sorry that we interrupted you two, but we're just a bit weary after traveling for hours or in need of assistance. You see, we're a bit lost and had just came out of the woods when we noticed you at the village in the distance. We'll be on our way, but if it isn't too much to ask, can you tell us if there's some place in that town where we can rest? The two wrapped up their mumblings, then turned to you with a kindly old grin on their faces. Well, of course, dearie. Just up the road is old Whitewoods. If you be needing a place to lift your feet, I'll have an inn with a few rooms to spare. Thank you. We'll be on our way, then, and I'm sorry for interrupting you. Now, wait just a minute. Before you leave, I do have to ask what the two of you were doing out there in them woods. The brown-haired woman had stepped so close that she was nearly ready to fall into the river. Her scrutinizing eyes once more glared at the two of you. Couldn't possibly be bandits now, would ye? Our village ain't got much if we poor, so you best try your luck at pilfering elsewhere. You had no time to answer as once more of the ladies finished their other began. Come now, do they look like the sort to be whomping and stomping? You can never be too sure. Look at the dearies. Haven't seen someone that worn and weary-legged since Richard broke his wagon and carried all that hay. Probably had a run-in with them thieves themselves. Just look at that cute face. Those temples look ripe for pinching. Reminds me of Harold when he wasn't an old geezer. Those were the days. That man with his looks made all of us swoon, till that wench came round and snatched him right up. You say you need a place to stay. I always got room for some travelers just passing by, especially one as handsome as you. I got room much more cozy like. Come, you can stay with me. I've been inside your house. You ain't cleaned it since last spring, I reckon. Dust everywhere. At least it's quiet, but without your kids running about. Your kids are louder than mine. The two began to squabble over one another, starting from things small to something personal that you would have been much better off not hearing. Having enough, Ramos took charge once again. Will you two shut up for just one moment? Oh, give me a head here. Does your village have a doctor? One of them shook their heads up and down while the other shook it left and right. It seemed like they could be afraid of them, as fear seemed to grip their reasoning, possibly at seeing Ramos in such a flustered state. You couldn't blame them, really. Is that yes or no? The two ladies looked at each other and switched how they answered. Fine, forget I asked. We'll look into it ourselves. As Ramos stormed off, you could see that the ladies were getting ready to gossip once more. Oh, sorry about that. We were just in a bit of a hurry. We need to find a doctor as soon as possible. Well, why didn't you say so? Well, we ain't got no doctor here. Yeah, not since the incident. But you know, wasn't there a man at the inn asking questions a few days ago? I reckon he might still be there. Hey, Caden, get your ass moving. Well, he seems quite fired up. You best keep that one on leash. He'll scare half the town to their homes. Ain't that the truth? But I sort of like a man who takes charge. Oh, here we go again. What? Kinds of minds you kinds of minds you a voice, don't he? No, you're getting them mixed with Sam. Sam, the only thing that old coot has steaming in his water for tea. Thanks for the help. You two having a good day. Before they could go on into another rambling spree, you ran off to follow Ramos. Like the lady said, a bit of ways down, you could see the makings of a humble-looking village by the water's edge. As you reached the entrance, though, Ramos was so far ahead that you lost him in a crowd of people. The town was quaint and sparsely populated, though it had a stone road which meant only good things for you. Travelers must have passed by this town very often. As you approached, though, you noticed cracks in the cobblestone road, weeds growing out, even the buildings which were built of beautiful stonework, not unlike Havana, seemed in disrepair. This town has seen better days, that's for sure. Most of the villagers seemed to mind their own business, only gawking every so often at your arrival, or possibly Ramos's. While they tried to hide it, you knew they were staring and gossiping. You were an outsider, but you felt more like an intruder. An unsettling feeling gnawed at you, and you didn't want to stay here long. I need to find Ramos fast. Hey, are you listening to me? From somewhere down the street, the faces of many villagers turned towards the sound of a deep-voiced man yelling. I think I just found him. Hey, I don't reckon I'll see you round these parts, huh? A middle-aged man in slightly worn clothes with a straw hat stopped you. He carried over his shoulder a large sack the size of a small child. Every time he sifted it, a few small plant seeds sticked out. I'm just a passerby. Can see that? No one from here wears clothes like nice. He looked down at your once beautiful clothes and saw they didn't look all that beautiful from what he was wearing. In fact, they almost looked worse. The storm at sea, sleeping on the beach, and traveling through the woods all did a number on your garments. Buttons were missing, the threads were starting to unravel, and you noticed there were some slight tears and frays at the edges of your shirt. And of course, there was ripping of your pant legs as well, courtesy of Ramos the tailor. Now, I suppose it has seen better days. Anyway, where are you from, stranger? From Havana. Your eyes went wide as you quickly clamped your hands over your mouth. Leandro's and Casillo's words about your enemies being anywhere buzzed through your head, and here you were, just blurting stuff out. If some man came out from the saddles and gutted you with a knife, it would be entirely deserved. I mean the outskirts of Havana. Really now, were clothes that nice? They were my father's. I see. Well, I suppose with the way you look, you've likely been through a lot. Well, you don't look like a bad guy despite the sword at your side. I'm not one to judge. So long as you didn't steal it off of someone, you'll be fine, though you'll still want to keep it hidden. From the looks of it, I can tell it's worth a signing copper. Listen here, bub. You need to start talking on it. Anyway, I take it he's with you? Yeah, sorry about it. He can be a bit boorish. Well, you'll want to tell him that it's pretty much useless to talk to old Sam. The crowd parted just a bit as they were done gawking at the beast, yelling at a well-aged man with thin white hair and plenty of sunspots. You could practically see the steam pouring out of Ramos's ears as he rose his voice, while the old man simply sat and stared at the sky like he didn't have a care in the world. Why is that? He's as dumb as they come. Some must have fried his noggin 10 years ago. Now he can't see nor hear. Wonder he even still alive. Oh, yep. We get travelers in here who talk to him, and he just sits there looking up like he's praying. See enough men make a fool of themselves trying to get him to talk, but this guy is something else. I'll go and stop them. But before I go, where's the nearest inn? Down the road. Take the first left you can. You'll see a swigging sign. Place called the Blind Bird, hard to miss. Let them know that Baird sent you, to get you a bit of a discount. You patted at your side and realized you didn't have any money either. You didn't have any money, and neither did Ramos. You cursed yourself for not taking the lady's offer of staying at one of their places, even if they likely would have chatted your ear clean off. Will do, thank you. Yep, you take care, you hear? The man moved on, walking with a bit of a limp as he tried to correct the sack on his shoulder. As Ramos started to fling out some colorful insults, so you scurried over before he did something other than bark. Hey, will you come over here for a moment? Despite your attempt to grab his arm and move him, it was futile. I'm not done talking to him yet. I've already found where we need to go, so let's go. Just your way, old man. This isn't over. You walked a bit away inside. Seriously? What was that about? You saw him ignoring me like some pompous prick. Well, you kind of rude to him, so he probably didn't pay you any attention, and he'd rather just talk to Caden since he was more polite. I mean, them ladies back there was one thing, but to be this rude to this man here, I mean, you're not gonna. I mean, people's gonna tune you out entirely. He was deaf. He still saw me, and blind. How do you know that? Some townsperson told me. I think his name was Baird. You just argued with someone who never even knew you existed. Or in other words, a brick wall. Anyone could have made that mistake. You were really going off on him. Worse than what my dad does with me. At least, did with me. Hey, don't get all teary-eyed now. I don't want none of that pouty faces around me. Geez, can't even remember my father without you criticizing me. You can, just not around me. So you found out where there was a doctor. Well, no, you stopped me for that. Don't suppose you actually believed that you were going to be making very well. Don't suppose you actually believed that you were going to be making very much headway. Anyway, Baird said there was an inn further down the road. Those ladies also said that someone came into town recently asking questions. We might as well see if we can get some answers there, or drinks. We don't have any money. I managed somehow. You followed the cracked and worn road through the village and by the gawking townsfolk. Came across a bridge that, like the rest of the town, had seen better days, yet as you ran your hands across the rail, years of dirt flaked off, revealing a beautiful white stone underneath. It seemed like this bridge might have been the source of the town's name. Whatever had happened to cause the village to become in such disrepair was beyond you. There were buildings that appeared to be burnt and nearly ready to fall apart, but everyone walked past as though it were merely a part of the scenery. You took the first left that you could and finally approached a building with a swinging sign outside named the Blind Bird Inn. The sign was slightly cracked and the windows were so grimy you couldn't even peer inside. This town really is a mess. As long as they have something good to drink, it doesn't matter. Well, as I said before, we don't have any money. Besides, we need to find a doctor. I don't want to die. Yeah, you got a bit of time before you kick the bucket. But before that, I want to get a drink. How many times do I have to tell you? We don't have any money. Seriously? Does he think they'll just pay him to drink or something? Whatever, he can learn the hard way. I need to focus on more important things. It was less like a tavern and more like an inn. Instead of the rough and rowdy feel that you expected, it was far more laid back and quiet. The scent of tobacco, cut grass, and mud permeated the room. Thick smoke emanated from the mouths of a few of the patrons and moved up where it joined into a low cloud at the ceiling. You stifle a cough as the smell and smoke irritated your throat. The patrons glance around warily at your entrance, but most of their eyes seem to stop at Ramos. The excess attention that he was getting was displeasing and only added to your unease. If you had to put a finger on it, it reminded you of your own family, and you had only hoped you were wrong. Ramos moved up to the counter and rested himself on a stool. What do you got to drink around here? The innkeeper turned around, looked Ramos up and down. Don't think I've ever seen your face around these parts. Are you an outsider? Yep. And a man named Bryce or Burb said to mention his name and we get a free drink or two. Bryce, you must be barred. Well, I suppose I owe that something. Sure thing, but tell him if you see him first that his debt will be. Sure thing, but tell him if you see him first that his debt will be paid. So then, what will you have? Don't serve that thing a single glass. From the other end of the room was a long man at a table with more than a few bottles of empty beer littered on the table and around the floor. His face was hidden behind a hat, and his feet were perched upon the table. They don't deserve even a single drop of what you got behind that counter. Yeah, and who the hell are you supposed to be? I'm the sheriff around these parts, and you? I have to think about leaving. As if by command, nearly all the patrons in the inn stood at once. The combined union of their chairs screeching on the floor made you jump. Their eyes gleamed a hateful fire, all aimed at Ramos. Meanwhile, the man stayed slouched in his chair. Sheriff, what's that supposed to be? Some kind of babysitter or something? The man stopped rocking in his chair in an instant, and his feet slid off the table. To you, I am an executioner. This is my place. So you better start walking out if you know what's good for you. Gruffy, now see here, this is my tavern. While I appreciate what you've done for us in the past, quiet, old man. Do you already forget what these beasts did to this town? What they did to Maria. The innkeeper shivered for a second, nearly dropping the glass he was cleaning in his hand. The sheriff slowly rose out of his chair and started towards the counter, parting the crowd that was beginning to move in on Ramos. Even from the door, you could tell that he was huge in size and breadth. Not as tall as Ramos, clearly, but easily several heads above you. He didn't even need to flex to show off his muscle arms at the size of melons as he removed his hat from his head and threw it towards of his poses. If Ramos wasn't so thick himself, it would have actually been impressive. Vermin, that's what you and your lot are. Bring nothing but trouble and grief for the folk of this town. Now you're gonna get it, or am I gonna have to kick you out myself? Before you could step forward and tell Ramos that perhaps you should heed his warning and leave, the rhino turned around in his stool and stared up at the man. I don't appreciate little fuckers like you who disturb me when I'm trying to get a drink. What did I just say? The entire place shook as Ramos hopped out of his chair and stood up to the sheriff, easily dwarfing him in size. Some of the patrons began to sweat and lose a bit of their nerve as they backed up, clearly worried of the beast in front of them. A wise decision on their part. I say I've been on my feet all day. I'm tired and I want to get drunk. Of course, I'm getting a drink for free, so I'm feeling generous today. Tell you what, you take your lackeys and hightail out of here, and I promise the next time I see you roaming around, I won't break more than an arm. You beast, you think you own the whole place just 'cause you're bigger. But this ain't going to go down like last time. This time, I'm going to save this village. We got you outnumbered, and I can assure you, that slave of yours over there likely won't be here to help. Slave? Ramos took a look over at you with a puzzled look, and you back at him. I know what you beasts do out there: pillage, slaughter, kill, rape, nothing but disgusting piles of filth. Probably took him from his family, did you? Hell, the look in your eye tells me you probably killed them in front of him. Well, once I take care of you, he'll still as hell be glad to out of your clutches. What? That's not what. Quiet, slave. Ramos gave you an intense stare, but he got the message. He was doing his job, keeping you safe from harm. It would be better for you if you just went along with it. You are already in enough trouble with assassins going after you. If this man found out that you two were actually working together, you likely would be caught up in whatever was about to start. You could see it in Ramos's eyes, though, the way his biceps tensed and fists started to shake. He was ready for a fight, and from what you had seen of Ramos from years of his scuffles in the Coliseum and on the streets as you escaped Havana, the other man was about to learn a hard lesson about messing with Ramos. Now then, pal, you really sure you want to mess with me? I've killed beastmen bigger than you, with more men than you. Ones with armor, swords. Yet you're coming up to me with nothing but empty fists. I'm not your pal. The man shouted subtly, and as he closed the distance and landed a clean fist square into Ramos's gut. This is for Maria, you bastards. Now get him while he's down. It should have been enough to knock a man onto his back and send his eyes rolling to the back of his skull. But the massive rhino was still standing. Heck, he didn't even buzz backwards an inch. Well, what the hell are you all waiting for? Jumping and teach these beasts a lesson of what happens when they come into our town. He looked around at the other patrons, expected them to follow through to gang up on Ramos. But they merely stood in their tracks, feet shaking and eyes wide. That's supposed to hurt. The sheriff looked up slowly, his eyes meeting the beast in front of him, whose provoked face softened into a crooked grin. Grufford looked around at the patrons, expected them to come to his aid, but they remained firmly in their place. Whatever bravado they had before had faded away. Their courage drained the moment Ramos stood up. God. Punch after punch, Grufford became more and more desperate as he railed on Ramos in the over and over again, while the rhino protested in the slightest. Some self you turned out to be. Was that really the best you got? Run. Gruffy went in for one last swing, this time much higher, but Ramos caught his fist in one hand and twisted it around in its grip. Yeah, suppose those muscles are just for show, but I think you've had enough fun. Gah. Now then, let me show you a real punch. You bastard. Gruffy went flying across the room with a single punch, breaking several tables and chairs along the way before he slammed to a halt in the wall. It was a miracle he didn't bust through that as well. The entire tavern, which was already pretty filthy before, was now in shambles, with glass and wood shards scattered everywhere. You among the other patrons stared in disbelief, slack-jawed at the corners that a single punch caused. Ramos merely rubbed his fist as though he were hurt more by it than the receiver, and that is for making me wait for my beer. The sheriff was covered in dirt and debris and clearly out cold. He likely wouldn't get back up for a while, not that he should even try with Ramos still here. Perhaps I should have held back some. Ramos, you agreed. Even if the man was wailing on Ramos, he didn't even look fazed, let alone hurt. He really could have handled that man without making such a mess at the innkeeper's tavern. The two of you were likely to kiss that free drink goodbye if you weren't already going to be kicked out. As you glanced over at the other men, you found them far too scared to move, so stricken with fear that it paralyzed their bodies and minds. But every time Ramos buzzed, even an inch, they fled as though their subconscious mind was still telling them to get ready to flee for their lives. Well, y'all gonna come at me or not? A nervous whimper came from each of the men as they carefully took a step back. I'll talk again, of course. If I catch any of you again on the street, I'll stuff each of your heads so far up another's ass you'll be mistaken for a centipede. Now go! As if Ramos was suddenly the leader, now everyone in the room cleared out, scrambling over each other to get through the door. You had to leap out of the way as to not be trampled over by the stampede. The only ones still left in the room were just you, Ramos, the innkeeper, and the knocked out Seraph. Looks like they can follow orders. Masop. Yeah, sorry about that, Pops, but the man had it coming. Seriously, you couldn't have just carried him outside or something? You think he was just going to let me? Certainly seemed weak enough. He pointed down Ramos's gut where the man had launched fist after fist into. Ramos welled at it again. Ramos welled at it, then gave it a quick slap. All muscle here, but for a man like that, I kinda expected more. Those bee stings hurt more. Myself, it'll take me all night to clean this up. Will you help? It was our fault, after all, that it got this way. Isn't that right, huh? Would I look like a maid? Seriously? Out. What was that? Get out, both of you. What about my free drink? I got nothing to serve to the likes of you. I gave you the benefit of the doubt, but trust you lot has brought nothing but trouble. Listen here, old man, that Seraph or whatever started it. If he had just minded his own business and stayed put in his chair, this place would never have gotten like this. I've already told you once, get out. Ramos, let's just go. Should probably serve watered down swole anyway. I'm really sorry about this. Take care. He quickly followed Ramos out the door before the man became any more livid. When he got back on the throne, you would have to be sure to pay him handsomely for the damages. Ramos was well on his way down the street, with bald fists and muttering under his breath about something pertaining to ale. You couldn't see his face, but by the lights of the townsfolk who quickly leaped out of his way when they lit up, you already had a painted picture. Because his outburst, there went both of your chairs at a warm bed. One night of sleeping under the stars was enough for you. You followed behind Ramos at a distance. He didn't seem to be going anywhere in particular, so you assumed he was just letting off steam. It was a good thing too, because you really didn't want to have him take out his anger on you next. As you moved through the town, you tried to spot any buildings that looked remotely like an inn, but with the current state of the town, you doubted there was any others. Just to be sure, you asked one of the townsfolk and they simply shook their head. I knew I should have said something. Maybe that gruffy guy must have actually listened maybe that gruffy guy would have actually listened if we could instead be sitting down with something to drink. Then again, he seemed to really hate Ramos for some reason. He went on about beastmen doing something to this town. I wonder if beastmen bandits might have ransacked this village in the past. We'll explain the state of this place and why he was so angry. He did also said he would protect this place this time. Might be a sensitive issue to bring up, though, with the other villages. Still, though, now it's going to be stuck on my mind. And then there was that name he mentioned, Maria. Maybe his wife? I wonder what happened to her. Well, probably not a good idea to ask him, and I might be better off not knowing. He looked up from your ponderings found that you were all alone with no sign of the great beastman. Ramos, he turned around, looked down the alleyways, and shouted out his name several more times, but he was nowhere to be found. Great. Well, this town seems small enough, so we'll enter him soon. He scurried onwards, moving around the town and asking around if anyone had seen a beastman. He thought it would be simple, but he was by no means small, so someone still had spotted him, but everyone you talked to simply shook their heads and moved on or seemed a bit weary there was even a beastman in town. It took a while, but you finally got a lead. Some giant horned beast was spotted just outside the village Prosper to the south. You wasted no time getting there. As soon as you left the village south gate, the cobblestone trail turned to dirt. The sun was already beginning to set over the golden hills, and you estimated it would be dark within the hour. Luckily, you spotted some hulking figure in the distance, like a scarecrow in the field. Huh? What is he doing? Nearby him were several children all screaming and running around while the beastman chased after them. Oh no, please don't tell me He quickly ran down the hill to see what was up. You don't want, I gotta get you and take you back to my lair. One, I don't want to be cooked into stew. The kid screamed out, not in fear but joy, as he giggled and ran from Ramos. His face had softened with a kind grin that he must have sworn he was a mask. That's right, I'm the big bad beastman, and no one is here to save you. Is he playing? It was almost incredulous to believe, but here you were, seeing it with your own eyes. Another child popped out of the tall grass, waving a stick in the air. He looked several years older than the two other children, and he stood at the top of a hill with pride and a grin. Fear not, citizens. It is I, the shining knight, Alexander Belisa. The young boy scratched at his head while he tried to recite the name of the hero of old. Ramos clasped his hands together and shouted to the kid. Belisarius. I know that. The boy made a pouty face while Ramos warmly smiled again. It is I, the shining knight, Alexander Belisarius, and I have come to save you. Yeah. The boy ran down the hill again, waving the stick around as he scurried towards Ramos and the two other children. God, it's a hero. Are you here to ruin my plans again? You have terrorized our home long enough. I gotta put a stop to your evil and slay your friend. I would like to see you try. The boy gave Ramos no mercy as he chased after him with a stick, swinging it left and right. The kid seemed to be going at it too, because you nearly saw the rhino's face go blank when he almost got smacked in the groin. Hey, stop moving. You're going to have to make me. The boy, his makeshift sword, around and around, flailing like a madman until... That finally landed a solid blow right to Ramos' side, and he cried out in pain. He really looked like it hurt too, though he looked tough enough to take it. No, I'm defeated. Ramos' hand clasped around his throat as he fell in a dramatic fashion. His acting certainly could have used a lot of work, but it was still entertaining to see him making such a fool of himself. The two children from before came running in, jumping in the air with joy. Yay! We win. Alright, it's my turn. Give me the sword. I want to be the hero now. No, I want to be. I'm gonna be the bestest hero ever. What? Ghosts can't be heroes. Yeah, I've never heard of a girl hero before. Why not? Because they can't. You can be a princess. I want to be a hero. Too bad. Ah. In a matter of seconds, the girl was on the ground screaming and bawling tears. Are you crying again? And she wonders why everyone calls her Crybaby Quail. Hey, that's enough. She started. Oh, she always cries when she doesn't get her way. I don't care who started, and that's no excuse to treat her like that. You're supposed to be siblings so you need to look out for each other. Rainbow spoke to the children like a stern father, and the two boys looked down at their stools in remorse. Rainbow's face became soft and his voice gentle as he approached the crying girl to console her. Her hands were balled into fists, and she refused to lift her head as tears and snot streamed down her face. Hey now, don't cry. You can be the hero. No, she can't. Who says she can't? Alexander was a man so she can't be the hero. The girl cried even harder upon hearing that, and you saw Ramos begin to sweat a little. Well, that may be true, but in the distance you heard a cowbell and a voice call out 3 times. Well, call out 3 names. Hayden, John, Crea. Out further in the fields were 2 women that, when you squinted, could tell that they looked familiar a bit familiar. One had blonde hair, while the other had brown. It was a blonde-haired one that was calling out, and she rang the bell again. Hayden, John, Crea, dinner time. I want to play some more. I think it's best that you go to your mom. But I want to still play with you. Yeah, you want to grow up big and strong like me, right? 2 boys nodded. Well, then you need to eat. That's how you get big muscles like mine. As Ramos flexed you, and the boys stared in awe. When it didn't look like his clothes could handle the strain of his muscles, he relaxed and the kids cheered. Now, time to get going. Fine. Will you be here tomorrow? Ramos quickly looked up at you as though he had the answer to that. Seeing how you were out of options for lodgings, though, you still doubted you would be going far from the town. Maybe. Promise? Yeah, promise? Alright, I'll promise. The bell in the distance rang even louder, and the woman shouted the children's name a bit more forcefully. Alright, you better go before your mom gets mad. Yeah, she gets really scary when she's mad. Bye-bye, Ramos. See you tomorrow. The 2 boys ran off, and Ramos waved, but there still was 1 child left. She was ruffling her dress and was heavily sniffling. You better go too. No, I'll be here tomorrow. No, I want to stay with you. You know you can't. You know you can't do that. Claire's selling. Get over here right now. Besides, your mom's calling for you, and she started to sound angry. Okay. The girl wiped the tears from her eyes and sluggishly moved onwards. She didn't get far though before she stopped and turned around. Ramos? Can I call you Daddy? Ramos almost seemed to be at a loss for words. He rubbed a hand at the back of his neck and looked at you, though there wasn't much you could do to help him in this situation. You were always terrible when it came to kids, so he was on his own here. He stared back at the girl, right in her innocent-looking eyes, and got down on one knee. Well, don't you always have a dad? No. He's gone. Mama said he's somewhere really high up and that we can't see him. But he can see us. Yes, father's dead. I see. Well, in that case, sure. Ramos ruffled her hair softly, and the girl's face beamed until she shined brighter than the sun. Yay! Now go on. Your mom looks ready to stomp over here. Okay. Bye, Daddy. I love you. See you tomorrow. With that, she skipped along towards her other siblings and her mom. Yeah, never thought I'd see the day where I'd be called daddy by a kid. Damn brats roping me into their games. You look like you were enjoying yourself, though. Ramos gave you an intense stare that nearly had you also running away. Anyway, I didn't realize you were good with kids. Kids are simple. They care only about three things: eating, playing, and pooping. You cover those bases and you're good to go. Still, I find it a surprise coming from you. You always look so annoyed. They must have been pretty brave not to run away. What do you think? I'm going to wail on a little kid? To be honest, yes. When I heard them screaming, you chased after them. I thought you were letting out your anger. Shit. What do you take me for? Well, you were really angry coming out of that end. And in any case, it's good to know you're not such a, hey, you're best off forgetting what you saw here today. Huh? I have a reputation to uphold, just like you. So keep your mouth shut about this, because you tell so. I'll punch your face in. As Ramos cracked his knuckles, he became aware of how serious he was about this. But I'm a king. Even more of a reason. Alright, I promise not to tell anyone. Man, if you didn't want anyone finding out, you should have just ignored them. They dragged me in, wouldn't stop their damn crying, till I bothered to play. Nearly threatened to rub their faces all over me, with all that snot running down their nose. Sure, your one and only weakness. Children's boogers. I'll have to take note of that next time. You had to admit, as much as Ramos seemingly loathed to show the side himself, he found it kind of. There was something kind of cute about a large guy like him playing with children. He seemed to fit right into. It was almost as though he was actively trying to play the part of a mean, cruel, tough guy, when in reality he was this big softy with a heart of gold. Or maybe he just really liked children, but you could never really tell him how he really felt about this. He didn't seem like the kind of guy to not follow through with his threats. Anyway, it doesn't look like we have a place to stay for the night. That tavern seemed to be the only one in town. And seeing the state we left it in, I don't think he cared much for my apology. See, you're gonna say it's my fault for that. But no, it's just, well, I was kind of looking forward to a warm bed and a table with food. Well, tough. That's just how it is living outside a castle. Could stand to be a bit more humble. Geez, say some of that advice for yourself. No, I wonder if one of those ladies would be willing to let us stay with them. Those old bats. Well, you want your ear to be talked off. Well, they certainly were chatty, but it would beat sleeping under the stars. And they were offering anyway. Well, the offer still stands if you're looking for a place to rest. Teetering down the hill with a basket of clothes in one hand and the washboard in the other was another familiar face. It was a brown-haired woman you saw by the river from earlier. As they approached, she put the basket down and wiped the sweat from her brow. Figured things might not have gone so well for you. No, not quite how we planned. Wait, how do you know how it went? Well, the two of you were practically yelling about not having a place to stay. You started to sweat a little, so you likely heard everything you and Ramos said about her. I know. When me and old Eleanor get together, we can talk for hours. Quite surprised myself we haven't already run our things to say. Sorry. Oh, there's no need for that. Why if I had a copper for every time someone called us chatterbirds, I'd be living in a castle by now. Anywho, my home's just a bit other ways down the road. You're giving us a place to stay for the night? Well, I can't just let you sleep out here in the cold, I mean. The plains get nasty and chilly this time of the year. And I take it you two haven't had anything pleasant to eat yet either. Especially you, boy, all skin and bones. Here,